Everybody needs to see this film. The film is Brainwashed, Sex, Camera, Power by Nina Menkes. And I'm so excited to have Nina here with me today. We're going to talk about why this film is so important, especially at this time in the evolution of our world. And I can't wait to share with you how this can change your life. Considered a cinematic feminist pioneer and one of America's foremost independent filmmakers, Menkes has shown widely in major international film festivals, including multiple premieres at Sundance, the Berlinale, Cannes, Rotterdam, Locarno, Toronto, La Cinémathèque Française, British Film Institute, Whitney Museum of American Art, and the New York Film Festival. Nina Menkes synthesizes inner dream worlds with harsh outer realities. She has been called brilliant, one of the most provocative artists in film today by Los Angeles Times. I agree with that. And her body of work was described as controversial, intense, and visually stunning by Sight and Sound. I agree with that also. Menkes has referred to herself as a witch, and Dennis Lim, writing in the New York Times, called her a cinematic sorceress. Welcome, Nina. I'm so excited to have you today and cannot wait to get into this conversation.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Let me just tell you how I came across your work. I've recently published a book called Fear, Food, and Feminine Power. And it is about how we feel so uncomfortable in our skin, self-soothe with food. And then we get caught up in the societal double bind that brainwashes us into thinking that we need to look, act a certain way, and that we cannot meet because we're too busy abusing our body and trying to hide our light because we feel so unsafe. It's this whole thing, right? And I was reading my book as an audiobook to an audiobook producer, Mark Shipman, who is married to someone who is in your film Brainwashed. And he said, "You've got to see this film." And I went and watched the film, and I came back in our next session. I said, "Oh my God, I've got to rewrite the book." Because what you do in here is you put a professional technical language around the things that I was attempting to express.
Right.
Right. And so I will say you and I are the same age. We were born in the same year. So I know we grew up at the same time. Film, commercial, the introduction of music videos, all of that I felt had a detrimental impact on, as you talk about it in the film, an attack on selfhood.
Yes.
So that's why I feel like everybody needs to see your film, because I feel like it's only gotten worse since then. You know, maybe it's been a little bit of a roller coaster, but where we are now, it's like there's always an attempt to one up and
Yeah.
to one up the previous version. So can you say more about the attack on selfhood?
Yes. The best thing, really, I just want to urge everyone who's listening to watch the film because it's very
Absolutely.
easy to find. It's on the internet. It's on Amazon. It's on Kino Lorber. It's on, I don't know. It's not hard to find.
No.
Brainwashed, Sex, Camera, Power is the actual full title, and it's really best to watch the movie because, as Debra said, we break it down in a very, very specific way what that means, what selfhood means, meaning being a subject, and what it means to be an object. And this is something that a lot of people don't really know what it really means. They have a sort of general feeling, like you hear the phrase, the objectification of women, and women are made into objects, and you hear these phrases, but you're
Mm-hmm.
not sure exactly what it means. You think maybe it means something about sexualized,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of more or less, or like wearing skimpy clothes, maybe that's it, you know and actually it's both more complicated and less complicated than that. It's less complicated because object is not really a thing so much as it is a position. So as we explain in the film, the easy way to start thinking about this is to take just English grammar. It
Hmm.
doesn't have to be English, it's the same in any other language, but since we all speak English, let's look at an English sentence, which is, as I say in the film, the cat sees the mouse. Okay, in that sentence, and we probably learned this in third grade or something, the cat is a subject, and the cat is seeing, that's the verb. And then what the cat is seeing is the mouse, and the mouse is the object. So the cat, the subject, is doing something, seeing the mouse. And in that sentence, we know what the cat is doing, and we know what the cat is seeing. It's the mouse. We do not know what the mouse is feeling or any,
Hmm.
we don't really know much about the mouse. The mouse is the object of the sentence. Okay, so if you put that into the relevant sentence here, which is the man sees the woman, the man is the subject and he sees the woman. And the woman is the object. Now, that helps us understand that the difference between subject and object is actually a difference of power in that sentence. Who has the
Hmm.
power in that situation, and who is acted upon, and who is actually powerless in that setup. It's a setup, and it's a setup that is reproduced so many gazillion times through visual language. And this is what we show in the film. How do you take this sentence, the man sees the woman? That's a sentence with words. How is that sentence reproduced ad nauseum through visual language? And there, that's why you got to see the film to understand. But basically, it shows the way that perspective of the camera and lighting and blocking and arranging who's doing the looking and who's being looked at and all of this stuff, how that positions women again and again a gazillion times in the object position and not in the subject position. And then we take the next step, which is what is the repercussions of this, and what is the meaning of this, and what are the implications of this?
Yes, because you show in the film 4 different techniques. I don't know if you call them techniques. Excuse my lack of expertise there, but from my layman's terms, I would say there's like 4 techniques that create the narrative position that produce the result that you want, which is that power over. It really does create that power over dynamic. And when you see it broken down like that, and that example that you show in the Raging Bull,
Yeah.
it was just like, oh my gosh. Then it's
Oh my God.
undeniable.
It's
And so I will
undeniable.
say, see the film, because it's an education. And then you can't unsee once you've seen, right? But all of this stuff that is written into your psyche, and yes, we'll talk about the repercussions of it, because it is monumental, really. It is, it's the things that you don't recognize, that get into your subconscious, that
Yeah,
influence the
absolutely.
way
And it's
you,
very,
yeah, the way you think about yourself, the way you see yourself, and the way you desire to be seen.
the important thing to remember is that, yes, it's not just the way that men, on the whole, of course, not all men, but a great majority of men have been trained, just like we've been trained, to see women in this way. But we ourselves have been trained to see ourselves in this object position too. And it's all very unconscious training. No one says, hey, you have to do this. I mean, maybe there are even people who say very very overtly, do don't don't interrupt, don't raise your voice, let the other
Hmm.
let the guy be the one who leads the way, and all of these kind of things that we're taught. um those are pretty overt, but there's also the, sort of the subtle thing, which is just like you're not a full-on human subject. Full-on human subject gets to make decisions, gets to move in the world, gets to have an action path, not just an acted upon path.
Right, right. And you show in the film also that triangle of the visual language of film, and then how that affects the employment discrimination and the culture of sexual abuse and sexual harassment, and I'll say the rape culture that
Yeah,
we
rape culture.
have come to on so many levels accept.
Yeah,
Um,
unfortunately.
yeah, and so you talk in the film also about the sexual discrimination in the film industry and in Hollywood, but that translates to the corporate world. I came through corporate, through corporate America. Oh my God.
Yep.
And there is this, it creates this, all right, don't be a baby, don't be a crybaby, don't be a whiny person. Suck it
Right.
up and prove yourself. And,
Right.
try as you may. Uh, it's, that discrimination that we're taught to power through is still there.
It's still there, and not only it's still there, but here in LA at USC, University of Southern California, there is quite a famous film school there, and there's also this Annenberg Center that does research out of the
Mm,
University of Southern California, and they have for many, many years, they have been tracking statistics on women in the film industry. Um, of course, you can track statistics in other in other industries, not only film, as you just pointed out. It's everywhere. But anyway, Annenberg tracks it in the film industry, and if you watch the film, you'll also hear from a fantastic woman by the name of Maria Giese, who started a whole federal investigation, or she instigated a federal investigation into extreme sexism and hiring practices in the film industry. And because of that, which is a whole long story in itself, but just the short form is that she did instigate this investigation, and they did find terrible discrimination. And there were some secret deals made, secret. No one ever knew because they wouldn't go to court out in the open. But there were some secret deals made between the federal government and the studios to hire more women because they were way illegal in their sexist hiring practices. It wasn't
wow.
like a thing. Coming out of film school, 50-50 men and women, hiring 7% women, 93% men. I mean, it was just like, what? Right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
there was after that, there was a like a little blip where things got a little better for women. It also coincided with the Me Too movement, more awareness of the pervasiveness of sexual harassment and assault that almost, I don't think there's a woman alive who hasn't experienced it.
Hmm.
And so there was a little improvement, but Annenberg, as I was saying, they put out a report every single year. They track statistics. And their report, which just came out December 2025, just came out, they said whatever gains we got after the Maria Giese uh, instigated investigation and all that, have now reverted back. We're
Wow.
back, and we're worse. We're worse than we were before. And obviously part of that is the current administration, but not only, because this has been going on for a very long time, and it went on under all different kind of administrations.
Hmm. Hmm. Wow. So, um, can we jump back to the repercussions? You started
Yeah.
to talk about repercussions, and I think it's really important to, if you're if you're listening to this and you're wondering, like, well, that's just the way it is. And one of the things that I heard from someone, I said, watch this film. They're like, well, the women want to be in those positions. Women like being like that. The women like, and I'm like, I don't know if I mean, I can't speak for all of the women, but do they have a choice? And
Yeah.
so, let's talk about repercussions for the people in the position as well as those who are being brainwashed.
Yeah, well, it's very often the same people who are being brainwashed and who are in the position.
True.
And the repercussions are that you're trained to be a subject, you're trained to basically, accept that and to always be. I mean, there's so many millions of examples. It's hard to know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
When a man speaks up in a meeting at a job, and he speaks sort of strongly, and he voices a strong opinion about something, people think that that's like, you know, good leadership. A
Right.
woman does the same thing, and it's like, oh, she's a troublemaker, right?
Right.
I
Right.
mean, that's just one little example. So I think probably across the board, I doubt there's a woman alive who hasn't been on the receiving end of this.
Yes.
Now, one thing that comes up with this film that's very important to clarify, and that is that being an object is, because of all of this brainwashing, it has become that to be sexy for a woman, heterosexual woman, means being in the object position.
Yes.
So it's quite difficult to untangle. And so some people will hear this and say, oh, you're just against sex, you don't like women to be sexy.
Right.
I'm like, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying that women can also be sexual subjects. They don't
Mm.
just have to be sexual objects. It's
Yes.
not against sex per se, it's against the construction of sexuality through media, through a million ways,
Mm-hmm.
putting women in the powerless position and having that powerless to be looked at in this position defined as sexiness. So that
Yes.
there are actually people who are intelligent, well-read, well-educated, who will watch Brainwash and say, you don't like sex.
Mm.
It's like, no, I think you missed the point. Sorry.
Yeah. Because
That's
one
not
of the,
what we're saying.
yeah.
We're saying that this position of object is disempowering and it has terrible repercussions. Have you ever seen a sex scene where there are two subjects? The last 20 minutes of the film, we give a lot of examples of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's not anti-sex. I mean,
Yes.
sorry to state the extreme obvious, but believe me, intelligent people have made this remark.
I
No,
get that.
you are so any person who says that is so deeply brainwashed by the idea that the only way for a woman to be sexy is to be objectified, not understanding that that's the problem. The sex is not the problem. The power relation is the problem.
Yes. And one of the things you say in the film, I took a lot of notes and then I had to go back and highlight them because I know that I couldn't get them all in. But one of the things that you say in the film is that the like our power is associated with the power to attract the male gaze
Right.
and how that seduces us ultimately into powerlessness.
Right.
And
It's
I think,
very tricky. Very tricky.
yes, it's very seductive
Yeah.
and kind of covert, but
Yeah.
it is so, because there's, the big feminine power movement. What is divine power? What is feminine power? Right.
Yeah.
And it gets so intertwined
Yeah.
with being a sexual being, with having that power to attract. And it makes your body, it makes your image about somebody else's experience other than your own.
Exactly. You nailed it right there. Perfectly said. It's
Yeah,
about
and your
somebody
film
else's
conveys that
experience.
beautifully, and it also says, here's how they're doing it. Step
Here's
1,
how
step
they're
2,
doing
step
it.
3, step 4, wake up. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you speak specifically about glamour. Can you talk about what you
Mhm.
say about glamour?
Yeah, well, the way that they seduce you into this powerlessness is primarily through the idea of glamour, or at least that's one big way. So it's glamorous or it's sexy. So if you define the object position as glamorous and sexy, then you have people, yeah, I want that. I want to be sexy. I want to be glamorous. Actually, those are cover up words. They're a veil, they're a cover up for powerlessness. And that's really like, whoa.
It
So,
is.
and what we have to kind of get to, and it's not, like a 5 minute thing, because this is deep, deep, deep ingrained.
Hmm.
But another thing, people are like, oh, well, are you saying don't wear makeup? Are you saying, no, it's not about the external appearance. You wear makeup, you don't wear makeup. It's about my experience as a human being. What do I feel in my body? Do I feel desire? Do I feel hatred? Do I feel powerlessness? What do
Yeah.
I feel?
And do I feel like someone's always looking and I somehow have a responsibility to make their visual experience of me like some experience for them?
Exactly. It's so upside down. It's
It,
very upside down. It's very confusing. And very smart people have been confused by this.
yeah.
And so I do strongly recommend everyone to actually see the movie, because when you see the concrete examples, and maybe Deborah, you can play the trailer for people. Maybe you can add the trailer in somehow to your podcast so they can get a rough idea. Um, at least, but anyway, it's easy to
Yes,
find
I definitely
online.
will, and I'll put links to the film also because I've obviously watched it more than once. And the first time, I mean, some of the things were like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. So I had to go back and watch it again. And then I
Yeah,
watched it with a friend because I wanted her reaction, I wanted her response. And
yeah,
some of the things that she responded to were that like, you know, like how is that better than that? How is that, so she was dealing with her own unraveling. And I think
yes,
that's why you need to see it more than once. Just
yes,
because initially you have the like it's in your face, the shock of it, or not
yeah,
shock, but just the awakening of it. And then you
yeah.
have the unraveling, and then you
Yeah.
can watch it objectively, watch it 3 times.
I had a film critic, so I'm talking about a very sophisticated film watcher, a person who's
Hmm.
been watching films and writing about them professionally. A woman from Czechoslovakia. She saw the film at Sundance when it premiered there, and she told me that she had to take a Valium after she saw the film. So she was so freaked out.
Hmm.
And I understand. I understand that. It's like, you sort of have this horrible, almost cellular awakening, and it's not very pleasant.
Yes,
It's
that
it's
is
it's
true. The
quite
first,
unpleasant. And
yeah.
and also, it does, like a friend of mine said, loved your film, but you ruined all my favorite films.
Well, you didn't ruin mine. Let me tell you, because I'd rather be awake to what is going on so that I can have a choice over how I internalize it. Do you know?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it just subconsciously becomes internalized and integrated into your experience without your knowledge, and that's the brainwashing, right? But
Yeah.
the first time I watched it, I did have to take breaks, go walk around, eat a piece of chocolate, and
Yeah.
then come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. But then afterwards, it was like, okay, I just developed such an appreciation for the things that you were sharing and the other women that you interview
Yeah.
in the film who
Yeah.
are, it's a must see. And I think not just for women, for everyone. For
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you. And I do really hope everyone goes out to watch a movie. And I'm easy to reach if you want to send me a note on Instagram at Menkes Film or at Brainwashed Movie. We always like to hear from people. But yeah, Deborah,
yeah,
thank you so
I'll
much
put
for
my comments on there. Can I ask you one more question before we
Yeah,
close? All
sure.
right. So say we want, there's been a lot of boycotting going on, right? With
Yeah.
different companies that, especially you mentioned the current administration. There's been a lot of calls to boycott. With something so pervasive as this brainwashing, the male gaze, the seduction, the that coercion to desire to attract a male gaze, that whole thing
Yeah.
that perpetuates this triangle that you speak of.
Right.
How can we take a stand against it? I mean, or take a stand for
Yeah.
another way.
Well, it's tough because it's so pervasive. It's
Mm-hmm.
so pervasive. Thing is, if you go out and you see a movie where you see this kind of thing perpetuated, tell your friends, you know what? Don't go see that movie.
Yeah. Or call
Don't.
it out.
Call it out and be like, don't go pay to see that movie. You know?
Yes.
And on the other hand, the other way too, if you see a film by a woman, but it doesn't have to be, because women do
Mm-hmm.
it too. I mean, that's one of the important things we point out in the film.
Right.
Women directors do it too. This is not only male directors. If you see a film where you see like a real woman subject, who's
Mm-hmm.
not an object, and maybe you tell your friends, go pay money to see that movie,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
put your dollar where your politics are. I mean, it's not so easy to just say, as everybody did, like boycott whatever CBS or it isn't one thing that's easy to just boycott and then you're
Mm-hmm.
good. The problem is it's everywhere. So it's very, very difficult. But I
Mm-hmm.
do think just on an individual basis, if you see a film where, the first shot is naked women bent over and it's a pan of their derrieres.
Right. That.
Shall we say that was a recent movie? I won't say what the name is. Okay. You could just go out and say, you know what? I want my money back.
Yeah.
Something
Yeah.
like
Yeah. And we all have the voice of social media if we choose to use it.
there you go.
Yeah. And you have, I will say, Nina has other films that she has produced, directed, and I love your sister.
Oh
She
yeah,
makes a
she's a
she
genius.
in what I've seen of,
Yeah,
the trailers of those films. So you have chosen. And
yeah,
I have to say, the first time of seeing Brainwashed and seeing the trailers of your other films, it's like, wow, it's really hard to imagine this being done differently than the way that I've been so conditioned to expect. Yet you've done it. And several of the women that you interview in Brainwashed have also done it. Chosen to use different film
yes,
techniques,
yes,
camera techniques, in order to not create or to avoid creating the subject object, the power over dynamic that perpetuates this toxic culture that we live in. So I encourage everybody to see those films, watch Brainwashed, highlight some of the women in that who are interviewed, check out their films. Let's condition ourselves, or at least awaken ourselves to a different way of being. And then we can
Fantastic.
begin to create the change. So I appreciate you so much. I appreciate what you've given through
you.
this film and
Thank
through
you.
your other films. And I can't
Thank
wait
you.
for everybody to see it.
Thank you
All right.
so
And all of the
Deborah.
links and everything will be in the show notes. Please check it out. Thank you
All
so much,
right.
Nina.
Wonderful. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.
The male gaze is definitely normalized in our society.
Almost all of us are familiar with the phrase, the objectification of women. What exactly is an object and what is a subject?
It's the stuff that I think you thought, and maybe I thought, well, everybody knows this. It's in the ether. And so to name it and to show it is something that I believe can change the world.
I personally see a very clear connection between this visual language of cinema, employment discrimination against women,
It's a visual medium, Kayla.
and an environment of pervasive sexual harassment, abuse, and assault.
In a visual culture such as ours, if the camera is predatory, then the culture is predatory as well.
This is the power of storytelling on the screen.
Women actors are often shot with fragmented body parts. Another thing that's very common is a female body on direct display for the audience without a specific person looking.
There's a saying that if people were to get rid of all the sexual predators, that there would be no film industry.
This cinematic visual language can really feel like the bedrock language of rape culture.
As Audre Lorde said, the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house.